soccer fans, Mike Guyomi from Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast, back again with my co-host Nick Pateras. Nick, how's it going tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mike. We actually, productive day around the house. Got the new bathroom vanity in. So,
Nice.
got another little side project to do here at the new place. Keep me busy.
There you go. There you go. So we've got lots
Yeah,
to
man,
talk
what's
about
new with
tonight,
you?
man. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to start previewing Group A and Group B of the MLS is Back tournament. We're going to talk a little bit about that from some of our listener questions. We're going to touch on some of the players that were out doing their thing out in the European leagues. Lots to talk about. However, the first thing I want to start with is Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to you, Nick, and Happy Father's Day.
And
Now
to you,
that's
Mike.
done.
Cheers. Cheers to all the fathers, as we put out on Twitter, to the fathers raising the next generation of soccer players.
There you
Happy
go.
Father's Day.
Exactly. Happy Father's Day. So this weekend coming up, I will be kind of celebrating with my family. We're going on an RV trip, so there will not be a live this weekend because I cannot. I can't get a live going from Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, in an RV with no internet. So, Nick, you're more than welcome to do a live. If you want to take that over, go for it. But I will not be.
If I do it, it'll be on social media. Keep checking social media at SOP Soccer on Twitter, at Sons of a Pitch Soccer on Facebook and YouTube. If I end up doing it, it'll be on social media.
There you go. There you go. So with that. We've got some questions from some of our listeners and viewers. So, Nick, lead us into some of these questions.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions we got in over this weekend worth of games is from David Ruffin, a long-time listener, kind of new to soccer. He uses the hashtag still learning the game. But he asks, is all defense in soccer zone defense? Is there ever a scenario where you would put your best defender as a spy on the other team's best player and have him follow them all over the field? So we gave a quick Twitter response just saying, generally it is a zone, but you do have your central defensive midfielders, your disruptors, guys who are just there to break up counterattacks. You do, like San Jose under Matias Almeida, do see some man marking at times. But you always want to be on the lookout, too, when you're looking at defensive shapes, are they switching off like an NBA pick and roll? So that's kind of the general answer I gave, Mike. Why don't you expand on that? What do you think? Is soccer a zone? How often do you see man marking? How often do you see a spy, like a middle linebacker on a quarterback type situation?
Yeah, I mean, you see, it depends on the system that the teams play, what formations they're playing, what kind of talent they have on their teams. You're going to see, certain teams playing certain ways for portions of the game, and then change that up and go the other route for the other part of the game, depending on what's going on in the game. But for the most part, you're going to see mostly like a zone defense kind of thing. You're going to have a team out there. They're going to be in a formation. This is how they're going to play, and they kind of feed off of that and go that route. So your center back's usually going to be in the defensive third, sometimes pushing into the middle third a little bit, but they're in that area and watching that area, and it kind of goes by position there. Sometimes you'll get into like something like the high press for the New York Red Bulls. They play that a lot, and these guys will literally just dive in and go right after a certain player constantly. Those are fun to watch when you have,
That's how Tyler Adams made his name.
It's exactly, and I was actually going to bring him up as an example. Playing against TFC in the playoffs back in 2017, he was 100% man marking Victor Vasquez. And Victor Vasquez kind of got the best of him within about 7 or 8 minutes, and and got that first goal, right off the bat. And then he kind of switched over to Michael Bradley, and he did a little bit better with Michael Bradley because Bradley was pushing forward a little bit. But yeah, he was, he was one of the most notorious for that, and you'll get that. So usually it's the kind of the zone defense, but again, you will see, guys going man on man and whatnot every once in a while. So
it's hard to keep a spy, and it's hard to do a man on man with kind of the offensive tactics, because even if you play a 4-man across the back or a 3-man across the back defensive shape, when you have the ball and you're trying to push forward, you're sending your wingers up, you're sending your defensive midfielders a little bit more forward, because as an offense, You want to have more players attacking, obviously. You want to overload certain parts of the pitch. You want to find those mismatches. You want to have the overlapping runs, things of that nature. So then when it's a transition back to defense, when you turn the ball over, you really can't man mark because you're way out of position from whatever man you're marking. And if you do have one of your defenders spying on the opposing player's top guy or hottest scorer or their facilitator, it's hard for him then to get from his offensive position to find that guy. So that's why you don't see it as often. But hey, when you have a team with such a talent disparity, and I'm just pulling historical teams here out of my hat, like if you've got an FC Cincinnati who had a tough season last year, maybe that's one way you play for a draw or just play to try and create some sort of opportunity where they stick a defender on, say, hey, we're playing Atlanta, we're going to put you on Ezekiel Barco, and you just make sure he doesn't distribute the ball. You just turn him back, and that's it. So that's one way to kind of use it. You don't see it too often, but I think that's one instance where you'd see a man marking or a spy. But it all comes from offense. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well stated. Now the next question that we have comes from Nathan Hale. Fear of the tourney being delayed or canceled with Florida and the COVID-19 pandemic and all these, increased cases and everything in Florida. He's like, hey, should we start worrying about this? That was the first thing I said to you, Nick, when we got on the phone before this. Said, hey, man, what are we looking at here? Are we are we going to have a tournament or not? Let me hear your take, because you had a good take on it when you had said right off the bat. But that's I want to hear it from your end, and then I'll kind of give my end as well.
Oh, for sure. Well, first of all, I want to mention Nathan Hale. Follow him on Twitter at Nino1. He is part of the You Ain't Lying podcast, Cincinnati FC Cincinnati podcast. So they have great takes on everything FC Cincinnati. Follow him. And check out that podcast as well. But as far as like my answer as to what to expect from the MLS's back tournament and the pandemic and COVID, we were talking that it's one thing to be concerned about player safety and coaching safety, but you got to think of the safety of the entire support system there. The media, the people in the stadium who are doing all of that support, and then on top of it, the people in the hotels, the people in public transport, the people who are working in the restaurants and preparing the food and the meals and keeping the training facilities up and running. All the health and safety of those people also must be taken into account. So if a player tests positive, he could have come in contact with a dozen people at least just on the way to the training center. Right. So there's a lot of logistics to take into account there. And I'll give the MLS credit. They are doing everything they can to ensure the player safety. They got all their protocols in place. They're working with Disney's Wide World of Sports. They're probably working with all these giant hotel chains down there as well. Or meal prep and all that sort of thing and transport services. They're doing the best they can. But that is one thing that could really derail this tournament. Personally, I don't think the tournament is going to be canceled. I think it's going to go ahead as planned, and we can get into that a little more. But that's a big consideration that I think needs to be addressed as well.
Yeah, most definitely. There's going to be question marks around it. The fact that leagues are playing, they're traveling, over in Europe, they're playing games, they're doing well. Yeah, it's a different setup there than it is here. It's completely different aspect from there as far as the amount of testing that's going on, the cases that's going on, all that kind of stuff. But when you have these safety protocols in place, I think that all will be fine. I don't see this getting canceled, knock on plastic here, because, I think they put you don't make an announcement that you're going to do something like this, and pull it out just because there's a spike in cases in that state or something like that. I mean, this is something that you've put a lot of time and money into, and you have all of the different, you go through all these different aspects of what happens if there's a second wave. What does this look like if there is a higher rate of testing? These types of things are thought of, or at least I would hope they are, before that actually before it actually happens. So I think all will be well with this. I think the guys are heading down there soon. They're heading down there in a couple days. So I think the next few days are very, very important. You know, they're not going to send these guys down there, start the process, and then pull it back. They can still pull the plug, you know, if they wanted to right now. I don't see them doing that, but that's kind of my take on it there. I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. And obviously the safety is the player safety, support system safety. Sport, and probably before the NBA. So the MLS is going to fill a real niche in American sports, and they're going to do it July 8th, the weekend after the 4th of July. Like it's going to be the American sports public is going to tune in for this. They've invested tons in their marketing and putting this tournament on and working with Disney and these facilities and everything. They're not going to pull the plug. They knew there was going to be a spike, or they anticipated there's going to be these issues. They're not going to pull the plug on it. What could derail the tournament would be what the Orlando Pride did. Again, not to knock the Pride. They're doing what they think is in the best interest for their club. They pulled out of the NWSL tournament. So if we see Atlanta United, who just had a couple players test positive, say, forget it, we're pulling out of this tournament, I mean, they're going to forfeit half the season. They could get huge fines and penalties under MLS rules, I imagine. But to me, that's what could derail this tournament, is if you have a club decide to pull out.
Right, and with that being said, I'm not sure how the NWSL is as far as a single entity system, right? Like MLS. Mm-hmm. MLS is single entity, and that might have something to do with it, right? So they might not let their teams pull out just based off of the agreements and everything that they're looking at from that end. Yeah. So I'm not sure what it is with the Orlando Pride and the NWSL. It looks like we got Joel Hampton on. What's up, fellas? Hey, Joel, how you doing, man? Glad you're back and hanging out with us. So I'm hoping that all goes smoothly here with the guys heading down for training, probably in I think it's the 24th is when they report down there. And the Pride, the NWSL, the only thing I can think of is that there's been a lot of full contact training going on the last few days, and they've got 6 players and 4 staff that have tested positive, and they know that probably 13 or 14 of that team is going to be testing positive for COVID. Right. Because if there's 6 players, and I'm not sure again what the roster looks like on an NWSL team, but if there's 25 players on a team, 6 of them are out, so be it. You still got 19 spots. You can still field a team in a full reserve team. So the only thing I can think of is maybe we're looking at something like that, as far as they don't have enough players, or there's been a lot, they're expecting the other girls will come down with it, so you hate to see it.
Yeah, real quick about the Orlando Pride, they might be in a unique situation because of so they had 10 players test positive. Here's some of the players. They had 10.
Oh, wow.
So here's some of their roster. I don't know if these players tested positive, but here's who you're losing: Sydney Leroux, Ali Krieger, Marta, the Brazilian superstar, and Emily Sonnet. These are like the top players in the league.
Right.
Nationally recognized American women, internationally recognized women's soccer players. So for the Orlando Pride to pull out, I mean, that'd be like if LAFC said, we're done. We're going to take the league MVP, one of the most recognizable names in American soccer, and Vela and Bob Bradley, and just take them out of it. Like, that's would be the effect of this.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, I hate to see it, because I think this was a great opportunity for the NWSL, to kind of get out onto a platform all by themselves. I think I've watched like 3 NWSL games, the Chicago Red Stars, and I was getting ready to watch damn near every game. So hopefully all will continue on well with this tournament, and hopefully those players will all recover nicely, like I would expect them to, and kind of go from there. So Nathan, thanks for the question and giving us something to talk about there for a few minutes. Jumps right down to a little bit of action over on the international type of game. Is Jonathan Wilson, a big USMNT fan? He asks, what's the best Premier League team for Weston McKennie to transfer to from Schalke? This one, you've got a little bit better of an understanding of those European leagues than I do. Sure. You had already kind of started the conversation on Twitter, so I'll kind of let you rehash that conversation and then pull forward through that.
Sure. Yeah, so I looked at it in a couple different ways. Like, do we want Schalke? Do we want Weston McKennie to be high profile? And if so, let's send him to Chelsea. Let's send him to Man United. Let's get him on Man City. If we're just trying to elevate his profile and get him on some of these teams, or do we want him to have high minutes? So that's how I looked at it: high minutes or high profile. If we're just looking to build the profile of an American player, then hey, maybe Chelsea should buy him. They were on a transfer ban. If they're not still on a transfer ban for some tampering with academy prospects or whatever the case may be, so they might not be able to get them, or maybe they might negotiate one of those deals where we don't technically negotiate and sign you, but we will in a year when the ban's over, something like that. So if he were to go to a team like that, he'd probably raise his profile, and it'd probably raise the profile of kind of Americans in Europe, much the way Christian Pulisic has done. By the way, we'll talk about his performance this weekend.
Yes, we will.
In just a few minutes. But on the flip side, you see these clubs like Man City who will sign a player and then loan them out for a year or two until they know they're ready to get first-team minutes. So I don't know if that's the best move for McKennie, especially when we want to see him take some development steps. We want him training with Man City's senior team if he is bought by Man City. Not that I'm saying he's going to, that's just an example.
Right.
So as far as then the high minutes, I'd love to see him go personally to Everton, my English club. I think he could be a motor that drives Everton forward and really helps transition to the offense. Excellent passing, good possession, and excellent foresight. Everton plays a little too much counter-attacking football for me right now. But hey, they're getting there. Ancelotti's getting there. But you put him on a team like that, and someone else commented on our Twitter feed, put him on an Everton, put him on a Leicester, put him on a Wolverhampton or West Ham, teams who are like trying to get into that top 8 and who have the money and just enough talent and the coaching to do it, and then just watch him take that next step, playing meaningful minutes for a team that wants to go out and win every game. That isn't like a Liverpool or a Man United who feels they're going to win, but has to go out and really earn those 3 points every week. I think McKennie would flourish in one of those, middle top teams.
Yeah, absolutely it would. I think he, the first question that comes to my mind is, well, should he just go to one of the bigger clubs? And then I'm like, well, I don't know about that, because I don't know if he's quite on the level of Christian Pulisic and Alphonso Davies, who actually just won the Bundesliga Rookie of the Year award. So that's a pretty big deal for a Canadian to get that. But I don't know if he's quite on that level. He's a good player. He's proving to be the best player on a weak team in the Bundesliga. But I don't think he would get those type of minutes at a Chelsea. Definitely not in a Liverpool or a Man United, or any of the other top clubs. So for me, I would say, that second tier of clubs in a better league than the Bundesliga would probably be a good next step for him to prove himself and to get better there. So for me, I would say you want to see him go to like the Premier League, probably, or maybe even La Liga. I would prefer to see him go to the Premier League, and one of those middle type table teams that will definitely give him the minutes and give him an opportunity to grow as well.
Hey, we just got a great question in from H. Huss via the live stream here on YouTube. So thanks for submitting the question. It piggybacks on Jonathan Wilson's question. How many Americans do you see in Europe in the next 10 years? Double what the number is now? My immediate thought is it's going to depend on MLS salaries. If the MLS can continue to raise revenues and increase salaries, I think you're going to see a few players who are like, okay, I can play for Atlanta United, or I can go play in in the Danish league, or go play in Norway. And maybe I'll make $1 million in Norway, or maybe I'll make 500,000 in the U.S., but I don't have to move. I get the quality of life in Atlanta. Like the MLS in the United States offers a lot more of the non-dollar figure type of incentives, I think.
Right.
But man, it's only going to go up. I mean, as the player profile, as the U.S. player pool rises, as the academy system gets bigger and better and more developed, as more families in the United States put their kids in soccer. I mean, there was always that little bit of story, like nobody is interested in baseball and nobody's wants their kids getting their head smashed in playing football. Yeah. So the natural choice is more kids are going to be playing soccer. All of that taken into account, yeah, you're definitely going to see double the amount of American players in Europe within the next decade. Mike, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, I think it will easily double. Because I don't think MLS is quite there yet as far as, being on a level of one of the top 4 or 5 European leagues. Even in 10 years, I think you're probably looking at about 20, 25. We kind of have to go through these stages, right? It went through the stage of the retirement league, where you bring in the Zlatans and the Pirlos and the big names, the Lampards, the Gerrards, so that you bring the fan base in. Well, now we're starting to get a fan base come in. We're starting to see, these clubs that are coming into the league like Austin. They're building these stadiums, and they've got, a season ticket wait list already. Minnesota coming into the league, Atlanta coming into the league. You've already got the base of Portland, your, Toronto's, your, even Orlando, when they came in, they're starting to slip a little bit, and that's because of the success that they have not had. But, you've got the base now, and now we're a selling league, right? We're bringing these young guys in, trying to develop them a little bit, and then sell them. Yeah, I mean, you get these guys at this level now. I think there's a few more stages before we start to be kind of the level where the U.S. player that's being developed doesn't go to Europe. They stay. They start their career and they end their career in MLS. So that's I think it'll easily double what it is right now, because I think that's the next step. You're starting to see the younger guys like Gio Reyna and the Tyler Adams and all this. They go MLS to Europe, and I think that will continue for a good period of time, probably till after 2026, and then start to turn around. So yeah, that's my take on that one. But yeah, the salaries does come into play, because if you've got the better salary cap out there, there's more money for these guys to make at home. Then that some of them might stay, but the growth wise of the game will probably be better for them to do that. So yeah, see, you're having a good conversation there with H. Huss, about baseball and playing sports like soccer and basketball are just way more fun, and that's very true. Baseball has slipped a lot, yeah, I mean, people, they said it. I remember watching that Atlanta announcement, and the red and yellow scarves, for Atlanta, and it was people were like, yeah, it's not going to work there. NHL didn't work, and yeah, now I mean, look at it. It's probably one of the best markets, if not the best market in MLS at the moment. So yeah, definitely.
And that's where they want to grow.
Right.
Nashville, so Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte, Miami, like they're expanding in the South and the Southeast, right? Austin, if you consider Texas the South, or if you consider Texas to be its own geographic region with 3 clubs in there. But yeah, they're growing in the South, and it's taken hold more so than hockey, more so than baseball. I mean, look at Mike. You lived in Florida.
Yep.
You know what the Marlins attendance was?
Garbage. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Tampa Bay the same. Yeah. Then again, MLS lost 2 clubs in Florida back in the early days, but we're past that. We're past that now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's
So yeah,
it's bad down there.
go for
It's
it.
bad in Florida. I mean, that was I loved it because I would go as a young teenager and whatnot. I would go to these baseball games and they let you bring your own booze in, and there was 4,000
As a
people.
young teenager, Mike.
Did I say that or a young 21-year-old? No. And we'd go there and it was great. I mean, we would we'd drink, we'd have a good time. There's 4,000 people there. We'd buy the cheapest seats in the house, and then we just move right down to the third row behind the Jays dugout, and and party it up. It was good. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. As Rocky jumps in and says, "Hey mates, ooh Florida." Hey, you know what? That was a move not by choice. That one was forced on me. I was stuck there. Had no choice on that move. And as soon as I could get out, I went to Illinois. Beautiful, cold, disgusting Illinois.
Well, I'll tell you, Florida was all downhill after you left.
I
Mike.
know.
I'm sure that was the cause
it went
of
to
it.
trash, man.
Well, let's take a little transition here as we move from our listener and viewer questions, and thank you guys for submitting those. It was a lot of fun to think about that and talk about them and get some Twitter feedback going. But let's do a little MLS headlines. And speaking of coming to Illinois, Mike, let's talk about our local team a little bit. I caught an interesting headline about the Chicago Fire that said they have a unique advantage going into the MLS's back tournament, and that is tournament experience. And here's how they broke it down in the article, and I dug into it a little bit myself. Raphael Wicki, their head coach, played for the Swiss World Cup team in '06.
Okay.
Jonathan Bornstein, U.S. player, World Cup 2010. Francisco Calvo, Costa Rica, most recently World Cup 2018. So you've got two of your defenders and your head coach, two of your starting defenders most likely, with the highest level tournament experience. Not to mention the fact that you've got a lot of young guys on the Chicago roster team. And when you're young and developing your talent and getting a name for yourself, you do it in your tournaments. So it looks like Chicago has an advantage with tournament experience. Then also factor in the fact that they're in the group of 6, so lesser odds per se,
Right.
but they're with 2 expansion teams. You've got Miami and Nashville, and expansion teams, as we know, usually fare average when it comes to an MLS season. So I think that gives Chicago a great advantage, and they could slip out of that group up there with New York and Philly. Your take, Mike. What do you think? Are Fire a sleeper team?
I think they could be, just based off of the team that was put together in the offseason by the new management team, all the way from ownership down through management. They've got a decent team. They performed okay for periods in Seattle. They played okay in their games that they were in. Now, as far as prior World Cup experience and whatnot, forget it. That means nothing in something like this. I mean, if this was a World Cup, maybe, but it's not. It's a tournament, in Orlando at the Wide World of Sports. It's completely different. So, I mean, yeah, they've been through it. They've played it before, but again, with Calvo, I don't know. I can't see how that would really play much into this. So, as far as the group that they're in, that's more of a positive for me, at least, on why they'll be doing a little bit better, and I think they do have an opportunity to get out of the group. They've got two weaker teams in that group. So Orlando, I'm putting Orlando there and Nashville there. Orlando, until they prove to me, that they're the host team. Okay, they're still not playing in their stadium in front of their fans. They've never proven anything. They've never been in the playoffs. So. So for me, I'm putting them with Nashville as two teams that are just going to get beat up on. And then you've got, an expansion team in Miami, which you don't know what you're going to get from them either, right? They've never had a home game. This is the closest thing they're going to have to a home game because they played in, I believe it was D.C. and L.A. So, again, you don't really know what to expect from them. All right, New York City and Philly, two strong Eastern Conference teams, and Chicago, but then you get into who plays who, and that comes into play as well. So we'll discuss that a little bit further in when we preview Group A, probably after the halftime break. After we run through some more headlines here. And that'll come into play on who we think will get out. But yeah, that's I think Chicago, there's an opportunity for them for sure. Now, when you're talking knockout rounds, I don't think they have what it takes to hang with the Atlantas, the Torontos, the Seattles, the LAFCs, I would say the Galaxies, but yeah, the Galaxies, I could see them hanging with them because you never know with the Galaxy. So
they're always good on paper, and
exactly,
that's it.
Exactly. So yeah, we'll talk more about that in the Group A preview as far as who we think will come out of that group.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean now getting to some of the pieces here in the MLS headlines, we touched on it a little bit last week about Jurgen Locadia, or actually no, we didn't touch about it last week. I touched on it when we were doing our live for Brighton Hove and Albion against Arsenal, that Jurgen Locadia's loan was extended with an option to buy that would keep him through 2023. This one, they reduced the buy option at the end. It was originally $10 million, now down to $7 million, or at least that's what they're saying. So Locadia, we haven't seen a lot of him. He wants to be in Cincinnati. We only got to see one game of him playing. I don't know. We'll see how he turns out in this tournament and what kind of talent we're talking about. Is this a huge type of player for the league? Well, his transfer fee would suggest that. So, as far as goals for this season, I don't know. What do we expect? How many games are we going to get though in this season? Right. So, if you break it down, 15 games, 16 games, 20 games, how many goals do you expect from him if, say, the season was 20 games?
Look, I mean, the hype that he's got and the $7 million, like he should hit 10, 12 goals. Cincinnati's going to give him every opportunity. That lineup and that roster and the coaching staff, I mean, they're gonna give him every opportunity to be their number one scorer and to be a top scorer in the league. So he's just got to take advantage of it, and he's got the pedigree, the talent, the drive, and the desire to do it. So it wouldn't surprise me if he, in a 20-game season, walks away with 10, 12, 14 goals. Wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, I was joking with some FC Cincinnati fans on Twitter about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he'll win the Golden Boot, no problem." That was kind of the joke we were talking about. But it's definitely, definitely a possibility, right? Definitely, maybe, until we actually get to see how he works in with this team in live games. Looking at their striker core right now, you've got Rashawn Daly, who's 23 years old, so he could probably get some minutes. Joseph Claude Guiao, 27. Yu Yakubu, 26. Kikuta Mane, 25. Jimmy McLaughlin, 27. Ray Ortiz, 23. Adrian Regatin, 28. And Brandon Vasquez. Sounds familiar, right, Mike? Age 21. So they've got a young and prime front line. And your Locadia is going to feature for that, without a doubt, especially being a DP. We all know DPs get the opportunities in the MLS right now.
Right.
So I can't wait to see what he can do. And, man, if he lives up to his potential, he knows he's playing for not just his contract this season, but, man, he can make that DP money for the next 3 because he's got an option to get picked up through 2023. And, we know that FC Cincinnati can drop the money if he's going to keep scoring goals for him.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with Atlanta, speaking of Atlanta, Tam P here, thanks for coming on and chatting with us. He thinks Atlanta will win MLS again twice in 3 years, and he just has a feeling that they'll do it. That's Barco here, and he brings up a great point. What next MLS youngster do you see making a top European team, if any? Tam, did we send you the show notes? Because that's the next note that we're actually going to be talking about right now, and that is Ezekiel Barco. Do we see him moving? There's some teams that apparently have contacted Atlanta. Darren Ailes came out and said, no, nobody's approached us yet or formally, talked to us about it. Well, I've heard that a million times from TFC and Bill Manning and Ali Curtis and Tim Bezbachenko and company, and it was all a load of crap. So, Fiorentina, decent team. Ligue 1 in France.
They got money to spend.
They do. They've got money to spend. So, I don't know. It could be. He's 21 years old. I don't know if he's quite ready to make the jump yet he hasn't proven enough in MLS. He was a young up and coming superstar in Argentina before he came.
CONMEBOL Player of the Year though, Mike.
No, that was Pity. No, that
That was Peter. Yeah.
So Barco
Sorry.
came over. I mean, he was one of like the golden kids of of world football, and decided to come over for MLS rather than going straight to Europe. And he hasn't quite broken out yet. He's come close a couple times. So maybe you see him stay here for another year or two. Kind of have one of those breakout seasons where he's one of the better players in the league, which he already is just by sheer talent alone. I think he's close, but I think if he actual stats wise lives up to it, has a great season with Pity, that's something there too. So we got Eric S comes in. He says Diego Rossi next to go? Question. Rocky says Bear is fuego for Vancouver. Yeah, he's a young up and coming talent as well. So I don't know, as far as Barco. Well, what do you think?
Mm-hmm. If we know Atlanta's model, right? Get the young hot talent, let them win some stuff here in MLS, and then flip them and sell them for a few more million, if not more. So based on that model, it certainly looks like they're going to sell him if Fiorentina come up with a good offer. I do kind of find it funny, Mike, where there's supposedly his agent, Barco's agent came, or Barco said, yeah, my agent said he got calls from Fiorentina. So it's like fourth-hand knowledge or third-hand knowledge there. It's a little suspect, but at the same time too, they're like, oh yeah, and some teams from France, by the way, some League One teams from France. It's like anytime you're trying to drive the price up of your client, you're just like, oh yeah, there's some League One teams in France who are really looking to get my guys there. So I don't know how much the real interest is, but if the numbers are there, if the dollars are there, then yeah, Atlanta will sell him. He'll go to Fiorentina. I think Serie A could be good for him, especially if Fiorentina, who's 13th right now, they're looking for a spark. They're looking for something to kind of push him into that top 10, top 8 of Serie A. And if Barco's the guy to do it, they'll lock him up long term. Right now, he's valued at $9.9 million dollars per the website Transfer Market, but Atlanta purchased him for 13.5.
Right.
But he's got a couple more years on his contract. So the contract control, I mean, the added value of being able to get him now while he's still young, that could drive the price up. And I could see Atlanta making some money off this deal. I do want to touch on Eric S.'s comment, Diego Rossi next to go. There's been a lot of speculation about Rossi being sold to any and every league around the world. He's had a really good run here in MLS lately, and an excellent compliment to Vela and Co. and LAFC. And I mean, he's primed and ready. He wants to get the contract right now too. If an offer comes in, he's going to take it. If it were up to him, if the MLS lets him go and they get their cut of money too, why not?
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll go refill the cocktails here, and we'll be back in just a minute. So, in the meantime, while we do that, make sure, if you have not done so already, please subscribe and join our 1,000 subscriber YouTube challenge. If we reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the MLS is Back tournament on August 11th, one subscriber will be randomly drawn to win a $250 Visa gift card. So tell your friends about that one. Make sure you subscribe. We'll be right back after we make a cocktail, and we've got lots to talk about as far as a Group A and Group B preview, and then we'll also hopefully touch on some of the Americans overseas as well. So we'll be right back, everybody. All right, guys, we're back from a short break there. A big shout out to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage and Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water on the podcast side. Thank you guys for sticking with us through all of this and helping us do what we do as well. A shout out to Skira Icelandic water as well. You can find that at 7-Eleven. We're featuring Skira on our YouTube channel, so make sure you head over to 7-Eleven and get some of that. It's a new water, really high alkaline, good stuff. So yeah, that's that. So thank you again for that, as well as the viewers and listeners. Couldn't do it without you. H. Haas, Rocky, Eric, Tam P, Daniel Young's usually on here with us, Amador Rojas. The list goes on and on. So thanks, guys, for jumping in here with us. And Nick, we got to talk some MLS's back, man. Group A and Group B previews. We touched a little bit upon the Chicago Fire and their setup. So let's get into that a little bit further. The teams that are in the Group A. We've got, let's see here. We've got Orlando City. We've got Inter Miami, NYCFC, Philadelphia Union, the Fire, and Nashville. So this is the 6-team group. This is who we've got in that opening group. You're going to have the opening match of Miami and Orlando. So a solid group because there's 6 teams. And a little bit of Nashville, who's going to struggle. They're an expansion team. They're kind of the slow build for the expansion team, and the Fire, kind of like an expansion team. Inter Miami, an expansion team. We got that. What are your thoughts on Group A? And as far as, we'll put the schedule up here as well. What are your thoughts on Group A? And you said you got Chicago might be able to squeeze out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be Philly, New York, and Chicago. Okay. I think those are the 3 best teams right now. Obviously, on paper, New York is the most talented. Philly is a close second, I think, on paper, but just kind of the form and the way they're playing. And I think Philly has a favorable schedule. I can't recall exactly what 3 teams that they're playing. Again, Chicago, we talked about them, favorable matchups against Nashville and Miami. Personally, though, Mike, I want Chicago to use this tournament to kind of build some more sports rivalries with some other local cities. Like, I really want to see Chicago beat New York so we can talk trash to New York. I want to see them beat Nashville so we can keep talking trash to Nashville. I want to see them, they're not playing Philly, but I'd love to see them, top the group or, advance further than Philly just so there can be some more, city of brotherly love. Versus the Windy City type of discussions going on. Like, to me, that's what I'm looking to see. And of course, the MLS loves to manufacture rivalries, so I'm sure I'm going to get a little bit of that. But again, as far as the talent goes, MLS, a lot of teams on paper look pretty comparable. I think New York and Philly rise a little bit above that just because of how they finished last season. And Chicago, we talked about them a little earlier. So those are my 3 to get out of Group A.
Yeah, I think if it goes chalk, then that's what we'll see, right? We'll see those teams go through. So while you were talking, I had the graphic up with the schedule, and I think that's really what it comes down to for me. And I'll bring that back up here so everybody can see it. You've got Orlando City, obviously that game against Miami, and then they're playing New York City and Nashville. So it's very well balanced. Miami's got Orlando, Philly, and Chicago. The same with New York City. Philly has Miami, New York City, and Nashville. The same as the Fire. And then, of course, Nashville, they've got Orlando, Philly, and Chicago, right? So it was very, very well balanced, in my opinion, to put those certain teams against each other to probably get the closest results as possible. So for me, I think the matchup that's going to determine the group is New York City against Philadelphia. And, of course, that, each of those teams is going to be playing a Florida team. New York City's got Orlando in the first game, and then in their first game, and then Philadelphia's got Miami. So, again, I don't know if I say first game, but we don't know if that's if that's going to be broken down that way. But this is the graphic they have from MLSsoccer.com. So for me, I think there's going to be a wild card in this group just because it is so open. New York City, I think talent-wise, they're the best team in this group, hands down. They haven't proven to me yet that they can win in a playoff type structure. In a tournament type structure. So to me, that's a little bit scary. I think they can use this as a building block if they do well, but I could see them faltering in this as well. So if there is any surprise, it's going to be New York City not even qualifying out of the group. But I think they'll get there with Philadelphia and New York, and then I've got to go with, one of the two Florida teams to get through as well, either Orlando or Miami. Just for the sake of the tournament being in Florida, and that one of them's going to get a good result in that first matchup. I would think maybe there's a draw. I don't know, but I'm gonna go Miami just because poor Orlando, they just have never gotten anywhere in any tournament or in any regular season or anything. So that's my thoughts on Group A.
Yeah.
From there.
Well, you're talking about we don't know the schedule yet exactly.
Right. As far as orders, right.
Yeah, but I think Orlando and Miami, that is going to be the first game of the tournament. So we know that's going to get played first, and that could set the pace. What's nice is that no team in that group has to play both New York and Philly, the two putative favorites at this point.
Right.
So you're right, good balance in Group A.
Yeah, for sure. So those are our thoughts for Group A. Now we got to talk a little bit about Group B. Group B, you've got Seattle Sounders, FC Dallas, Vancouver, and the San Jose Earthquakes. So this one, you've got the reigning champions in Seattle. To me, this is a much easier group, especially for the favorite in Seattle. Seattle, they know how to play in playoffs, tournament-type atmospheres. So, for me, I think they have no problem navigating out of this group to get into that second round. Now, as far as second place goes, that to me is a crapshoot. FC Dallas, Vancouver, San Jose. They're, I got to go probably with FC Dallas or San Jose in that one, just because Vancouver hasn't really proven much at all. But Mark DeSantos seems pretty fired up about this tournament. So I think second place is just if you have a pick now, put it down on paper because you'll either look like a hero or a zero. Because I can't tell you where it's going to go. I mean, Dallas, Vancouver, and San Jose, that's very mediocre teams that maybe are kind of getting on the edge of being good, but not, nothing that's really striking me as a big-time team. So that's Group B there. I've got the Sounders for sure, and if I got to make a pick, I'm going to go with San Jose with Matias Almeida, and then the third place team isn't getting out of the group. So that are my thoughts. What are your thoughts on Group B, Nick?
I mean, well, the third place team could get out of the group. It could be one of those, like, everyone draws and ends up with 3 points type of thing, where the third place team in a couple other groups ends up with, 2 draws and a loss or something like that and loses 3 to 2 points, something like that. But, yeah, I think Seattle's the favorite here, pretty easy. Reigning MLS champ, not much turnover on the roster. Though, didn't Harry Shipp retire recently? Like, I think that might be something that they're going to have to deal with early on. But once you get through that first game, you're good. And Seattle has depth. They've got coaching. Everyone knows Brian Smetzer. Everyone knows how good he is. He lets his team play, and he adjusts based on what he sees.
Yeah.
Second place, I'm going to go with Dallas, actually, Mike.
Okay.
I think Dallas is going to surprise a lot of people this season. I think they took steps forward last year, but just didn't know how to handle it. I think they've got a little bit more experience under their belt. I think their young players are going to step up. They're not going to play like young players. They've gotten past that. So give me Dallas to take that second spot. But it's going to be – I mean, this could be where, Seattle wins 3 games and advances out of the group with 9 points, and then, Dallas advances with a goal differential because everyone else drew every other game. That could happen. You're not high on Vancouver at all, Mike.
No.
Why is that? You just don't think they've got it? Like, what do you think?
No, they just haven't proven anything. I've got to see some results. I mean, this team looked like trash in their game against Sporting Kansas City in the beginning of the season. And then at least they had a decent result where they beat the Galaxy. But again, that's the Galaxy, right? I mean, you can't take a match against the Galaxy seriously. So I think until they prove that they're a good team, they've got the talent. I remember doing the team preview with Alexander Gange-Ruzic, and his at between the sticks, I think it is for Vancouver. Yep. It was. They have lots of talent. They've got a good team. Now, can they put it all together? Can Mark DeSantos really put it all together? This is a big time year for Mark DeSantos. If he doesn't get it right this season, forget it. He's done. Vancouver needs to start turning this around, especially with the signing of Lucas Cavallini. He's a good striker. He did well in Liga MX. They have the talent. Now can they put it down on paper? And for me, I until I see something, I can't go with them.
Well, here real quick, the DraftKings Sportsbook odds definitely support your picks there, Mike. They actually have Vancouver as the third worst odds to win the tournament at plus 7,500. Obviously, your favorites, LAFC is the clear favorite at plus 350. TFC's at plus 900, followed by Atlanta, Red Bulls, Philly, and Dallas.
Or Seattle.
So Seattle is actually, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8th. They're tied with Kansas City at plus 1,600. So Seattle, not a favorite to win the tournament, but you know what? That's why a lot of people are gambling in the MLS. I've read a few articles, over the last few months, because, what else do I have to do, that are saying that people in the United States who are real well-versed or very well-versed in the MLS can actually do better than what gamblers typically make, because the odds makers haven't caught up to MLS yet. A lot of these Vegas odds makers don't know soccer, don't know how to adjust lines and take into account the draw or the goal differential or a lot of the tournament aspects of it, or even roster rules. People were making odds in the U.S. Open Cup not knowing that you couldn't have so many international players or things of that nature. So a lot of really savvy soccer people and who are also gamblers took advantage of that. So we'll see. We'll see how these odds shake out. But yeah, I'll give them LAFC and TFC as the two favorites to start the tournament. From there on out, who knows?
Right, and that's something. You look at Seattle down that far in these odds. This is a great opportunity to put some money on a team like Seattle. Hey, last time I checked, they're the reigning MLS Cup champs. Their team hasn't changed much. Wait, they won it in 2016 as well. They were in the final in 2017. This is a very good team. Sporting Kansas City was on fire the first couple games of the season. Minnesota. There's a lot of good options for this tournament. Somebody can make a lot of money just by putting 10, 15, 20 bucks down on a couple teams. So, you've got a point when you're talking about, the odds makers haven't quite caught up to MLS yet. As well, you have the home field advantage in MLS is so important. And that's something that, they haven't quite found yet. They're getting there. But that's, for my picks and predictions, right? We were up big money the first 2 weeks of the season. We were up almost $300. So, there is definitely an opportunity there to make money when betting on this. And I'm going to be doing some picks and predictions video. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it because until the schedule comes out, I got to see how that comes out and what that looks like. But I don't know if I'm going to do it live, just in the morning and throw a few graphics up here and do it that way, or if I'm actually just going to record these out like a week in advance and then just upload them day by day by day, or how we're going to do it. But I'm looking to get into that as well as doing some of the lives as well. So, that's kind of the Group A and Group B preview as we run up close to an hour here. And as H. Huss says, always gamble responsibly, folks. Absolutely, do not gamble more than you have. If you have a problem, be honest with yourself and admit it. I'm an alcoholic. I can admit that I'm an alcoholic. It's fine. So that's the first step, is admitting you have a problem. So,
right.
But anyway,
by the way, what are you drinking tonight, Mike? What's in that glass of yours?
Johnny Walker and Coke Zero. So yeah.
Johnny Coke.
Oh, right. And Eric says should do an intro to sports betting video. Huh.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I could probably touch
a little
on that.
outside the wheelhouse, but that's a good topic.
Yeah. Maybe we can specialize that into MLS and it's got to be MLS because that's honestly, like, for me, I started out sports gambling a long time ago, and I did well, but never did great. And I knew everything about every sport. But now recently, with getting into MLS and doing this show, having that extreme focus on, that's really the only sport I watch. I'll watch the odd hockey game here or there, the odd basketball game here, but I watch MLS incessantly. and I know everything about every team and every player and who's in, who's out for what games and all that kind of stuff, that really helps be successful from that standpoint. So that's a good idea. Maybe we should do something like that.
It'd definitely be educational for me doing the research. That's for sure.
Nice. Now let's get through a couple more things here to, as Eric says, since betting is becoming more popular and mainstream, but yes, focus on MLS. Yeah, I mean, now it's legal in a lot of states. Ever since the Supreme Court struck down some old ruling and, put it to be legal, you're starting to see much more of the states. Obviously up to the states, so depending on where you are. But I know here in Illinois, where we're based out of, that was legalized like a week before March Madness, and then March Madness got canceled. So yeah, but anyways, we got to move on. We're approaching the hour mark here. There's before we get into the Americans overseas, and we'll kind of run through that. NYCFC and Dallas have scheduled a friendly on July 4th, Independence Day.
Ooh,
more teams.
Soccer on America's birthday.
Hey, more teams to follow.
Imagine that.
What are we gonna do? I mean, do more teams follow in their footsteps, and do we see kind of like a friendly preseason before in Orlando, or do we see any televised games, or are we just gonna do the whole preseason? This is not streamed thing.
Yeah, I really hope that they get some TV coverage of these friendlies. On the 4th of July. I mean, there's no sports going on. Like, if people are hanging out and they just throw sports on in the background, it's going to be an MLS game.
Yeah.
So it would be perfect for the league to do it. Will it get televised? Probably not. Let's be honest. Like, I'm sure a lot of these stations who would carry the game are like, we'll put on like a classic World Series or something like that rather than run an MLS friendly game. Because the only thing that would be worse than wasting a time slot on a soccer game would be on a game that doesn't actually matter.
Right.
So I doubt it, even though I would love to see it happen.
Agreed. So let's talk a little bit about the USMNT and some of the players that were in action over the past weekend. We got to start out first and foremost with the golden boy of USMNT, the face of USMNT. Captain America, Christian Pulisic for Chelsea. Dude, it was hilarious, man. I was real busy, and I was doing all kinds of stuff, and then one of my wife's friends came over, and we get talking, we sit down on the couch, and I'm like, well, we're just sitting there talking, I'm just going to put on soccer, right? I mean, I think Chelsea's playing right now, so I put it on the TV, no sound, nothing, and literally within like 2 or 3 minutes, Pulisic comes up off the bench as a substitute, right? So I'm like, oh, good. This perfect timing, right? So then I'm watching that, and boom, 3 minutes after he's on the field, he gets a goal. It was real close to missing, but he got the goal. A couple inches the other way, it goes, skying over the bar, but he gets the goal, and then I turned the game off and moved on. So I don't know how he did after that, but he scored and kind of turned the tides when they were down 1-0 to I think it was Aston Villa, and then he came in the game and got on the end. He had a great movement off the ball, and again on the second goal I noticed because Olivier Giroud got the second goal, and I was watching the replay of that to see where Pulisic was, and like his off the ball movement was just perfect. Like if Giroud didn't take that shot that got deflected, and that ball got to Pulisic, he got himself a second. So a great game from Pulisic. What are your thoughts on him and Chelsea right now?
Look, you score a goal, you're going to have a great game. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You could do, as a striker, as an attacking player, you could be miserable, but find the back of the net once, and it's going to be a good game for you. So no doubt about it. I mean, he's got 6 goals and 2 assists in, maybe about 17 appearances with Chelsea. Like, that's amazing. I actually think the one against Villa was his 7th goal of the season, and he joins, like, American greats as scoring 7 goals in the Premier League in a season or something like that. So Pulisic is doing very well. He's fitting in at Chelsea. He's meeting all of Lampard's expectations, slowly exceeding all those expectations, and as a result, getting more playing time for it, getting more meaningful time for it. He's not just playing like crappy Carabao Cup matchups.
Right.
He's getting Premier League starts. He's getting Premier League minutes. So Pulisic just keeps getting better and better. Love it. The flip side of this game, yes, Mike, they did beat Aston Villa. U.S. youth prospect Indiana Vasilev is his name, was an unused sub for Aston Villa. But still, a guy who's training with a Premier League club, getting that experience, getting that exposure, can only help the U.S. youth teams and maybe earn his way into a couple of senior team caps eventually.
Yeah, that the fact that he's on the rosters is a good start. Now, where does it go from there? Only time will tell. DeAndre Yedlin for Newcastle, last minute substitute in a 3-0 victory over Sheffield United. Anything to take out of that?
Right. So for me, Yedlin's been a consistent player in the Premier League. Probably dropped off a little bit. It's sad to see a lot of people ripping on Yedlin and just saying, well, Yedlin came out with a statement that said, I might not appear for the U.S. anymore because of everything going on in society. How can I represent this country? And I feel bad people are ripping on him for it and saying, well, you wouldn't play here anyway. But the fact is his production has dropped off a little bit. My takeaway, though, is he's hit 100 Premier League appearances. That's no small feat, especially for an American, especially for a guy to do it when he did. Over the last decade, when really Premier League teams were spending money on big European players, not looking to develop an American defender. So the fact that he did it, I think that's a great accomplishment for Yedlin. 100 Premier League appearances. He's only the 12th American to do that, only the 7th non-goalkeeper. So real good career for DeAndre Yedlin. And he's not done yet, USMNT or otherwise, I think.
All right. So heading over to the Bundesliga, Josh Sargent. Anything? I mean, is he doing anything for that team? That's getting
more of the same. Like Sargent
same,
has good stats, passes the eye test, not scoring goals. Werder's going to get relegated probably.
Yeah.
You always find him in the right position. He always makes the far post run. He's always pulling defenders away from the other attacking players. He's just not getting the ball.
Yeah.
He had like 2 shots, I think, that game. One really good shot, like 3 minutes in, that, man, he had the goalkeeper leaning the wrong way. He almost beat him near post. But he's just not getting the ball. He's got to get out of Bremen. That's my take.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. I mean, you're on a bad team, so got to move on and get to a better team. Now, John Brooks as well in the German league, 4-1 victory over Schalke, Weston McKennie's team. Is he just kind of more of the same as far as what he's just kind of there and he's doing okay, or is he really standing out? What are you seeing from John Brooks?
I said it last week. You don't want your center defender standing out. You don't want your center back standing out. So he's not making big mistakes. You're up. I think you're up 4-0 before Schalke gets that consolation goal. So Brooks had a good game. Didn't concede until very late. For him to be playing in Europa, that would be great experience for an American, and hopefully he can share that with some of his teammates. Really, though, what U.S. Soccer Twitter blew up about is Wolfsburg's up 4-0. You got Ulysses Llanes sitting on the bench. I know he's a really young kid, and I think that's what Wolfsburg is saying. Like, he's just not ready for these first-team meaningful game minutes. But you're up 4-0. Get him out there. Get him a few minutes. Get him a token sub. You got 5 of them, and I'd love to see Llanes play Llanes play in some meaningful minutes just to see what he can do. So I think that's what most people are worked up about as far as Americans on Wolfsburg, not so much John Brooks.
Right.
On the flip side, Weston McKennie for Schalke, again, the best of a bad team. He made this one run. His run was box to box, and nobody supported him. Nobody was moving into space. Nobody was trying to pull defenders away from. It was McKennie dribbling past 3 Wolfsburg players, making like an 80-yard run. Finally, the 3 defenders converge on him. He makes the smart play and lays it off onto the wing, and the guy just kills it. Like, he takes too many touches, just slows it down. Like, Schalke doesn't care.
No.
And it sucks seeing McKennie. have to still try to outperform those guys. Like I send him to the Premier League, like we talked about in the first half of this show. Get him over there, sell him, make some money off of him, and then let him continue to grow and let us American fans watch him at least in a better time spot on television.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. I mean, is Schalke? I was just looking at the table, and looks like they're in 11th, and there's one more week of games, so they're fine. They're not going to be in European play. They're not going to get relegated. So
Yep.
there's nothing to play for. And you know what? What I like to see, though, from McKennie is he's not giving up. He's playing well. He's going after it. The tenacity is there. The drive is there. And that's what's most important. Eventually, he'll get his turn, either on a good Schalke side or moving over to the Premier League for a decent team. And if he continues that work rate and that tenacity, he'll be fine. Sometimes he needs to tone it down just a little bit. But, overall, he'll be fine. I'm glad to see that he's still fighting hard. So good to see there. As far as the next game, we've got Borussia Dortmund against Red Bull Leipzig, and Gio Reyna finally got his first start for Borussia Dortmund. Finally, and he makes the best out of it. He had a decent game.
Yeah.
He got a beautiful assist, a gorgeous assist. It was just a quick little touch pass right to Erling Haaland. Gorgeous. So fans got to be happy with his performance. What do you think, Nick?
Oh yeah, and obviously U.S. Soccer Twitter blew up. They're like, he got the start. He finally got the start. He's healthy. He's going to be playing. He's going to be lighting up the Bundesliga again. I mean, even Holland called him the American Dream in the postgame. Like, so you got the two young stars of this team who love playing together. That speaks worlds of Gio Reyna, and he's going to be a good teammate, going to be a good player, a guy that you can bring in and he'll fit in the locker room with these senior type players. So I think it's great, man. I can't wait to see what more he does when he starts getting solid time. And he played 80 minutes. This wasn't like, all right, let's get him in 2030 and we'll sub him out. We'll see if he can handle the start. He played 80 minutes of quality Bundesliga top flight soccer.
Right, against one of the top teams in the Bundesliga. I think it was third for Leipzig. So this was second against third. So definitely good to see him there. And as Eric S says, it's crazy that he's 17 too. It is. I mean, he's only 17 years old, man. I remember being 17 years old. I couldn't even imagine being on a stage like that. So
yeah, right. Like I was still trying to get my driver's license at 17, and here's this kid who's dropping assists in the Bundesliga.
Yeah. Shoot. So, some people make it, some people don't. What are you gonna do? Tyler Adams subbed on at halftime. Decent play from him. You bring up a good question. Why is he not getting more playing time at Red Bull?
I can only speculate. I haven't watched enough of his game. I just wonder if they're thinking, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? We're sitting in third place. No one's going to challenge Bayern for the top spot. As long as we stay in Champions League range, which I think the Bundesliga gets the top four, like the Premier League. As long as they finish third or fourth, they're happy about it. Like, why push their players? Why injure them? I don't know what the fitness is, if that's come into it, but that's just kind of my quick take on it. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Adams comes in, plays anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes, and everything's fine.
There you go. A couple guys in the English Championship to mention there. Tim Ream. You got to go through this because I know nothing about what these guys did this weekend, so I'm going to let you take it on from here and then take us home, man. We're at an hour and 11 minutes. I know we had a couple-minute break for halftime there, but we've got to get rolling. Imagine how long our episodes are going to be when we start talking about MLS again.
Ooh, well, maybe we'll just have to do more, Mike. But anyway, Tim Ream playing for Fulham, a club that has a long history of top Americans over there. Not that I'm putting Tim Ream in that category by any means. Ream's a defender, if you don't know. Fulham lost to Brentford 2-0. Right now, though, Fulham is third in the championship, which would put them in a playoff, the promotion playoff. Maybe they get back to the Premier League. Championship, you get the top two teams, and then the third and fourth go into a playoff to advance up. He's 32 years old, playing as a defender for English Championship side. He's got a lot of young competition. A couple other guys we're going to talk about next. I'm pretty sure Ream's USMNT days are over. I mean, he's kind of that stalwart, knows the system kind of guy for Greg Berhalter, a guy he can rely on. You don't need to coach him up much because he's experienced. But at this point, I think you got to move on from Tim Ream.
Yeah.
Mike, you have any feelings about Ream?
I've been pretty clear about my feelings for Tim Ream, since going back probably even, 2017, 2018. He doesn't have anything going for him. He's not going to be in the picture going forward. I mean, he's done. He's 32 years old. It's the movement of youth. He doesn't supply a huge amount of leadership. He was kind of a fringe player at best anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he still was better than Daniel Lovitz, but...
That's not saying much, Nick. That's not saying much.
I know, I just had to bring his name up again. But the other two defenders we're talking about here, we got Cameron Carter-Vickers and Anthony Robinson. CCV, Cameron Carter-Vickers, he's part of Tottenham Hotspur, but he's on loan to Luton Town in the Championship. This loan just occurred back in January, so fairly fresh loan. I mean, a guy who's looking to break into Tottenham, but Tottenham right now, they're a top club in the Premiership. They have, made a run in the Champions League last year. Like, this is a team with big aspirations. They want to compete for Premier League titles. They want to compete in the Champions League. So the fact that Carter Vickers is on their books is great news. Let's let him develop a little bit in the Championship and then bring him up to Tottenham and see what he can do. So I'm not in any hurry to rush him. For what it's worth, Luton drew 1-1 to Preston, and Cameron Carter-Vickers, since his loan, has started 7 of 8 matches, totaling 648 or so minutes. So he's immediately playing and developing and doing great. He's only 22, so his future's bright for CCV. Meanwhile, you got Anthony Robinson, a guy I wish would have stuck with Everton and had more success there. However, currently playing for Wigan Athletic. They won 2-0 over Huddersfield, and man, they needed the points to avoid relegation. Again, another young guy, 22 years old. So we've got a lot of young American defenders. And then on the flip side, you got guys like Omar Gonzalez, John Brooks, Walker Zimmerman, who are more established, kind of mid to late 20s type of thing. So I think the U.S. backline is going to be pretty well set, Mike.
Agreed.
Any thoughts on our championship level players over in England?
I think Anthony Robinson's on his way out. I think he'll be moved shortly. I mean, there was a lot of talk him going to AC Milan. He seems to be back healthy from the issues that were hampering him. Yeah. I expect him to kind of move on. Tim Ream, we talked about that. I think that the championship, it is what it is. I think we're probably Anthony Robinson is the best suited out of that group, and that's pretty much it, man.
Yeah, I want them to be playing in the English Championship at age 22. Right. I want them to be playing in the Premier League at age 24. Right. So with that being said, we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight on our live YouTube broadcast for our podcast. Tam P, Eric S, Rocky H. Huss. Shout out to Joel Hampton, who jumped on right at the beginning of the show with us. Thank you guys for joining, for your questions. Thank you to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage, Skira, right? Yeah.
Skira, yep.
Iceland Spring Skira, available at 7-Eleven. Go check it out. Thank you to them Donovan Food Brokerage can't express the thanks enough. John and his company has been behind us since, almost the day we started podcasting. So thank you to everyone over there. And again, thank you to our viewers and our listeners, because without you, we're just some crazy dudes talking soccer. We're out of our basements, though. Now we're in more formal offices and better setups and better digs. But thank you to our viewers and listeners, and to everyone who follows us at SOP Soccer on Twitter, at Sons of a Pitch Soccer on Facebook, and on YouTube. Be on the lookout for more content, especially as the MLS actually does get back that opening tournament weekend, July 8th. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.